Hello! In this video we're going to be looking at compound area, which is something that we need to know for our National 4 maths, and it's part of the expressions and formulae unit. Okie dokie, so we should be able to find the area of each of these shapes, a rectangle, a triangle and a circle, and what we're going to be looking at in this lesson is finding the area of compound shapes. So that means shapes that are made out of rectangles and triangles and circles. Okay, so first of all, a wee reminder about how we find the area of each of those shapes. So we'll start with this rectangle. If I want to find the area of a rectangle, all I need to do is length times breadth. So in this case, the length might be along this side. That'll be the length, L for length, and the breadth this way, B for breadth. So we just take the length, we multiply it by the breadth. That tells me the area. Okay, how about for a triangle? Well, if I want to find the area of a triangle, it will be the area equals the base times the height divided by 2. Okay, and the base of this triangle would be along here. I'll try B for base there, and the height is, and this bit's important, the height is going straight up, vertically upwards from the base. So we get like a right angle in here between the base and the height. It's crucially not that slopey length there. That's not the height, that's just sort of a diagonal length. We want the height, so that's from the bottom up to the top like that. And we do the base times the height, and then we divide it by 2. Because if we just did base times the height, we'd be finding the area of this rectangle, and we don't want the area of that rectangle, we just want the triangle, which is exactly half of it. And the third one that we need to know is the area of a circle, and the area of a circle is pi times the radius, where the radius, if we remember, is that distance that goes sort of halfway across the circle. So it starts right in the centre here, and it goes all the way out to the edge, or the circumference of the circle. Pi times the radius, and just so we're totally clear, pi is that number that starts 3.14, so it's 3.14 times the radius. Okay, let's have a go at using those then. So I'm going to find the area of these shapes, and then I'm going to ask you to pause the video and you can find the area of these shapes. So this first one, that's a rectangle. Remember we said our formula for finding the area of a rectangle was that it was just length times breadth. So I'm going to have to do 7 times 9 to find the area of that. And 7 times 9 is 63. We're not quite finished yet. We need units. Wherever we're finding a sort of a measurement type of thing, we need units. Area is always measured in units squared. So because my lengths are centimetres, this one is going to be 63 centimetres squared. The next one then is a triangle. I'll swap colours. There we go. And we said the area of a triangle was base times height divided by 2. And it's always a good idea to write out your formula first before you chuck your numbers in to make sure you've definitely got the right formula and that you're substituting correctly. So the base of this triangle is 11, and the height of this triangle is straight up there, that's 8. And then I need to divide it by 2. So we've got 11 times 8, well that's 88, divided by 2, that's going to be 44. So I've got 44, and this time my lengths were in metres, which means my area is in metres squared. So 44 metres squared we've got here. And the third example one is this circle. Now we said the area of a circle is pi times the radius. Whoops. My time sign's gone a bit weird, apologies. Let's try that again. There we go. Pi times the radius. And we've got to be careful here, because this length here, all the way across, that's not the radius, is it? That is called the diameter. I want the radius, which is just half the way across. So that's going to be 6 in this case. So the radius times the radius, and times 3.14, that's the value we're using for pi. And if I pop that into my calculator, this is probably going to have to be a calculator one, unless you're very good at your 3.14 times tables, I get 113.04. Good. Oh, no, units. I need some units on this one. So this time my radius was measured in millimetres, so it's 113.04 millimetres squared. Okie dokie, pause the video here, have a look at these ones. I'll come back in a second and show you how we should have answered them. Okay, how did we do? Let's go through this first one then. So the area should have been length times breadth for this rectangle. Hopefully we found that the answer was 13.5 meters squared. For this next one, it's a triangle, so we're doing base times height, but then we have to halve it. We should have found that the answer was 18 centimeters squared. And this one, a little bit trickier, this one, because we've not got a whole circle, we've got half a circle. So we were going to have to do, I'll go through this one sort of fully, I think. So we've got the area is going to be pi times the radius, but that would be for a full circle. We've got half a circle, so we're going to have to divide that by 2. So into my calculator, I should be typing something like this, 3.14 times the radius. So we should check, is the radius the number we've got? Is it going from the edge to the centre? Yes, it is, so that is a radius. So we've got 3.14 times 7, but that would be the whole circle if I had all of the, oh, that's no good, is it? If I had all of the bottom part of the circle as well, but I don't, so I'm going to have to halve that. So let's halve that circle. And when I chuck that into my calculator, we've got 76.93, what are my units? Centimetres squared. There we go. So those should have been our answers to those your turn questions. So now we're going to be looking at compound shapes, like I said right at the start. So if I had this rectangle here, and I knew that this rectangle had an area of 20 centimetres squared, and I also had a triangle like this, and I knew that the area of that triangle was 8 centimetres squared, if I was to make a sort of a house shape by chucking the triangle on top of the rectangle, boop, like this, then I'd know that the area of that shape is 28 centimetres squared, because we said that the area, if I sort of split them in half again, the area of this one we said was 8 centimetres squared. The area of the rectangle we said was 20 centimetres squared. So all I'm doing is adding those guys together, and we get our answer of 28 centimetres squared. So that's an example of a compound shape. It's made from one rectangle, one triangle. I've added them together, so that's my compound shape, and I just add the areas. We can do a similar thing. If I go back to my rectangle that has an area of 20 centimetres squared, and say I had a circle of 8 centimetres squared, and rather than adding them together, I'm sort of going to cut out a hole from my rectangle, which is exactly this size and shape. Boop, like that. And then I would know that the area of the remaining shape, the bit I've got left, the bit that's sort of coloured in this pinky red colour, would be 12 centimetres squared. And I know that because the area of the rectangle was 20 centimetres squared. We said the area of the circle was 8 centimetres squared. And so all I've done is a subtraction here. 20 take away 8 is 12 centimetres squared. So that's my remaining area. And that's basically the two ideas that we need to have for when we're finding the area of compound shapes. We find the area of the 2 or 3 shapes involved, and we either add them together or we subtract them depending on whether they are sort of 2 shapes added together like they were here, or whether they're one shape cut out of another shape like it was here. Okay, let's give that a go then. So here, on the left, I'm going to do this one like we did before, and then I'll put, you can pause the video. I'm not going to pause it, I can't do that. You can pause the video and have a go at this one. So this shape, I reckon, is made out of 2 rectangles, and I'm going to split it into 2 rectangles. There are a couple of ways we could do it. We could split it across this way, or we could split it down this way. I think this one is going to be easiest if I split it this way, so that's what I'm going to do. And then we've got 2 areas that we need to find. We need to find this area here, and we also need to find this area over here. So let's do them in those 2 different colours. My yellow one is going to be 8 by 11, because that's the length times the breadth of that one. So that's 88 centimetres squared. And how about the one I've shaded in green? Right, we've got to do a little bit of work here first, haven't we? Because I don't know how wide it is, and I don't know how tall it is. But what do I know? Well, I know that all the way along here is 15 centimetres, and I know that all the way along here is 11 centimetres. So that means this extra bit here, that must have been 4 centimetres, right? So that bit has got to be 4 centimetres in order for 11 plus 4 has to be the same as all the way along the bottom, 15. And how about the other part? Well, this bit is 5, and this bit we need to work out so that that is 8. So if all the way down there is 8, and this bit is 5, that bit there has got to be 3 centimetres, because then we've got 5 plus 3 equals 8. So now we've got the length and breadth of that green one. The length was 4, the breadth was 3, so we've got 12 centimetres squared. And we've got to decide here, am I adding those areas or am I subtracting them? Well, this is 2 rectangles kind of stuck together, so I'm going to have to add those. So I've got 80, I haven't lined these up very well, have I? We've got 88 plus 12, which I reckon is going to be 100. So my answer should be 100 centimetres squared. Okay, good. Pause the video, take a look at this one. Okay, how did we do? Again, 2 ways we could have split it up. We could have either gone across the way like this, or we could go down the way like this. And I reckon for this one, it's possibly going to be easiest to go across the way. So let's do that. I'm going to split it up into 2 rectangles, like that. There we go. And let's do those 2 in different colours like we did before. So this one I'll mark in red. What's the area of that one going to be? Length times breadth. Length is 9, breadth is 4. So we've got 9 times 4, which I believe is 36 units, metres squared this time. The other rectangle, let's shade it in blue. And now for this one, there isn't any extra calculations we need to do. We know the length is 7 metres, we know the breadth is 6 metres, so I can just straight away do 7 times 6 is 42 metres squared. And then to get my final answer, we're adding those together here, aren't we? So I've got 36 plus 42, that's going to be 78 metres squared. Good. Okay, going on to another pair of examples. Now these are a little bit trickier here, aren't they? First thing we're going to do, just like we did with the previous ones, is we're going to split them up into the shapes that we know. So here, I reckon I've got a rectangle on the left, and I reckon I've got a sort of a semicircle over here on the right. So let's shade these in 2 different colours so we can work out their areas. So this one here, that's my rectangle, and rectangles, remember, are just length times breadth. So that's going to be 12 times 5, and 12 times 5 is going to be 60 metres squared. And then we've got this semicircle over here, and the area of a circle, remember, is pi times the radius, but we haven't got a semicircle, we haven't got a full circle, we've got a semicircle, so I'm going to have to divide that answer by 2. Good, so into my calculator, what am I going to be typing? Well, pi, that's 3.14, times the radius. Now the radius is halfway across, isn't it? We can see from this picture that all the way across, that's 12 metres, so half the way across, that must be 6 metres. So times the radius again, and then divide by 2. So I'm going to have to type that into my calculator, 3.14 times 6 divided by 2, and it tells me that that is going to be 56.52. And when we add those together then, because I've got a semicircle and I've got a rectangle that we're adding together, add those 2 numbers together, the answer I get is 116.52. Is that right? Yeah, I think so, 0.52. And what are my units? We're in metres squared here, aren't we? Because my lengths are in metres, we found an area, so it's metres squared. Okay, again, pause the video here. I'll come back in a sec and see how you got on with this one. Right, so this one we should have been splitting into a rectangle and a triangle. So let's split that up straight away then. There we go. And we'll do a couple of different colours so you know which bits we're doing. So here's my rectangle, we'll do that bit first. A rectangle, remember, is just length times breadth. So length is 14 centimetres, breadth is 12 centimetres, Remember with these, when we're multiplying, it doesn't matter what order I do these in. I could have done 12 times 14, or I could have done 14 times 12. Makes literally no difference. So whether we call this bit the length and that bit the breadth, or this bit the length and that bit the breadth, doesn't matter at all. So 14 times 12 is going to be 168. 168, and my units here are centimetres squared. Let's do the triangle part then, and again we're going to have a bit of extra work to do here because we don't know yet how long this this part is of my triangle. This 20 centimetres is all the way along the bottom, but I don't know how long this bit is, but we can work it out because up there is 12, all the way along here is 20, so that little extra bit, that's got to be 8, hasn't it? 8 centimetres. And how about the height of my triangle? How tall is the triangle? Well, it's exactly as tall as my rectangle, isn't it? So that length there must be 14. So finding the area of the triangle, that's going to be base, so that's 8, times height, which is 14, but because it's a triangle, remember we've got to divide that by 2, and if I chuck that in my calculator, I'm going to get 56 centimetres squared. And last step, we need to add those guys together. Again, I haven't lined it up very well, apologies. We've got 224 centimetres squared. I hope, and hopefully you got the same as well. Right, one more pair of examples, promise, just one more. And in this one, we're doing that sort of cutting shapes out. So rather than adding things together, we've got some subtracting to do here. So let's start off with the whole of this triangle. So imagine that it goes all the way along here and then up here and then around here. Imagine we had the whole triangle without this rectangle chopped out the middle of it. How would I find the area of that triangle? Well, it would be base times height divided by 2. That's how we find the area of a triangle. And 7 times 3 divided by 2 is going to be 10.5 centimetres squared. And how about this bit that we've chopped out of the middle then? That's a rectangle, isn't it, that we've chopped out of the middle. And how do I find the area of a rectangle? Well, it's just length times breadth. So that's going to be 2.5 times 1.5. And that's probably a calculator one, isn't it? 2.5 times 1.5 is 3.75. 3.75 centimetres squared again. And this time I've lined them up a little bit better, that's good. But this time, of course, we're subtracting, right? We're not adding this time, we're subtracting because I've chopped this rectangle out of this big triangle. So we take the areas away. And I'm going to be left with 6.75, need some units on that, centimetres squared. Cool. Take a look at this one on the right, pause the video, and I'll come back in a sec to help you. Okay, how do we do? First thing we should be doing is finding the area of that whole big rectangle there. So this big blue rectangle there, what's the area of that going to be? Well, rectangles are length times breadth, so 9 times 8. 9 times 8 is 72. What are my units? Metres squared this time. And then we need to find the area of that circle that's been chopped out the middle. How do I find the area of a circle? It's pi times the radius times the radius. So in my calculator, I'm typing 3.14 times, now what's my radius? From the centre to the edge is 3 metres, isn't it? So we've got 3 times 3, and I've got a whole circle, so I don't need to halve this. It's not a semicircle this time. So we've got 3.14 times 3 in my calculator, and it tells me that that is going to be 28.26. And again, I've chopped that circle out of the rectangle, haven't I? So this is a subtraction this time. So I'm going to take away my 28.26 from my 72 metres squared, and I'm going to be left with 43.74 metres squared. There's my answer. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show you is the questions for the quiz. So you can either pause the video here and you can use this to work your quiz from. We're allowed to use a calculator for these. In fact, I recommend it because otherwise you're not going to be able to do these ones that have got circles involved in them. Or these questions will also be attached to the assignment in our Google Classroom, so you can find them there as well. Okay, Let me know if you've got any questions, and I'll speak to you later, guys. Cheers. Bye.